Today in the media conference with Lal Goel, which is brought to you by V4 News, V4 Stream, Malnadu TV India, News Gaon Se, Samvad Sarokar News, Bharat Post News, Karu News, Organ Donation India Foundation and Gyan. Our endeavor is to enlighten you with the current topic. And today's topic is not only current, but quite relevant. And the topic is socio-business innovation. Companies around the globe have attempted to jump on the social business bandwagon, but many are struggling to turn their investments into business values. A response to market developments after they have happened, instead of taking the initiative and driving change themselves, can yield strategies that are often underdeveloped and reactive. The necessary education, acceptance, and engagement of social business implementation and management is often ignored. Get these two elements right and you can have a social business strategy that delivers value where it matters most, in relationships. Social business can drive the relationships with and among customers, employees, partners, suppliers, investors, and other stakeholders. And to discuss this very, very important and very relevant topic, social business innovation, we have very elite, experienced, those who are authority in this field, panelists are with us. And I would like to invite my first panelist guest, and he is Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agrawal. Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agrawal is the former Professor of Marketing, Innovation and Management, IIM Lucknow, XLRI, Jamshedpur, and California State University, USA. He is president of Indo-Gulf Management Association. He is US Fulbright Fellow Boston, EFMD Fellow Paris, and British Council Fellow London. In 2019, he was ranked among the 251 most fabulous global education leaders. And very recently, the UAE government, seeing his work, awarded him the Golden Visa as a first professor internationally to be awarded a Golden Visa. So welcome, Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agrawal on our show. Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agrawal, as our today's topic is socio-business innovation, and you are a leader in this innovation and management. Definitely, you are an authority in this field. So we would like to know your views on socio-business innovation. Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agrawal, please.
Thank you, Mr. Goel. First of all, very, very warm and very sincere New Year greetings to you, as it is our first show of the new year. And I would like to also greet your millions of viewers who are of this particular program, who have supported us, who have supported the cause of learning, and who have also given us the necessary and sometimes very, very generous recognition to the work that we want to create through this platform of media conference with Lal Goel, which is so much engaged into wonderful things itself, socio business innovations and also social innovations. If we look into the innovation, you have said the right thing, that innovation is the lifeblood of any organization, and especially business organizations. Many people have said this in many different ways, but common theme has always been that any organization has to have innovation in its DNA in order to keep going and in order to survive and also to progress. No organization can say that I can live off my past or my present without having some assets for the future. So therefore, innovation is extremely important for them. But the innovation has been most of the time related to their core business. the business in which they are making money, the business in which their mission was. And of course, there will always be some socio-economic or some kind of ethical aura around it. But the fact of the matter here is that in essence, they would like to do innovations first in their core business. So if it is Unilever, then Unilever would like to make a lot of innovations relating to the products and services they are selling to the market. The fact that they are empowering women, the fact that they are creating foundations in order to create some kind of empowerment source for the women consumers or the women stakeholders of their product, that becomes their poster child in many cases. I'm not saying in the case of Unilever, but in the case of others, it may become a poster child by which they can also show that they are not just for money, but they are also for the society they bring in, and therefore they bring a lot of things. For instance, I mean, one of my very dear students who just recently quit Unilever, and she became now, just about 3 weeks ago, the first Indian CEO of the Chanel France, Lina Nair. Now, she and I used to have a lot of things are doing in XLRI Jamshedpur, and I'm very glad also that she has reached a position where she will be probably another Indra Nui in very, very short period of time, where a woman can do wonderful things based only on socio-economic socio-economic business innovations. So that's the point that I'm trying to drive now. So now the organizations are seeing and also saying that core business is no doubt very important, but the things which they do around that are equally important, and they should also be innovation oriented, and they should also be run like a business they do. For instance, if we look into one of my most favorite organizations, Tata Steel. Now, Tata Steel always said in India, in the first advertisement, when they said they also make steel, or we also make steel. Now, that was a very, very clear message to the community that though we are a steel making company, though we are number one in steel making, at least in the private sector, if not in the entire industry, because SAIL was way ahead of them in terms of capacity production and many other things, plants, multi-locational plants. But they said that we are taking care of the society much, much more, and they created a lot of models also in that. And each and every model actually has become a part of one case study or another in terms of what they did. For instance, almost 30 years ago, I created a socio-economic innovation model with the Tata Motors in Jamshedpur round, where we created the street plays or street or what we call nukkad, plays, by which we were educating tribal women of Jharkhand and Bihar at that time both, where we were trying to explain to them how to make a shopping much, much more informed, much, much more useful, and much, much more challenging to these sellers. In the sense that they shouldn't be selling you fake goods, they shouldn't be selling you expired goods, they shouldn't be selling you the same amount of material into a larger looking packaging, because sometimes we think that if the packaging is larger, then contents will also be larger. Now we explained to them, so therefore that particular model thereafter continued. Similarly, in during that particular time, we had one of the, I would say, the finest doctors coming from Mumbai. Again, thanks to Tata Power, that we could get them, and that particular person did on a very, very massive scale the operations for the people who were in that particular field, and it was not one of practice. It became a kind of a model for them. So telco socio model, Tata socio model, they became a kind of a benchmark for organizations which they came later. Recently, if we look into some of the things, and again, I'm not promoting their brand or activities, I'm just giving as an example. Like, for instance, our own richest man, Mr. Mukesh Ambani, that he has set aside a very, very large sum, almost, I mean, I'm talking about billions, in which he has created some innovative models in education in India. And these particular models are not just for money, but even for making it totally and totally available and accessible to everyone without having the monetary power or without having the spending power for the same. So therefore, the point which I'm trying to drive home with all modesty is that first, innovation is essential. Second, innovation is done by the organization in its core activity first. And then thereafter they move into the second aspect. That is to say, innovation in the around social connections, around social stakeholdership that they have. Now, there is a very, very, I would say now, a real feeling, and that feeling is really welcome, in which they are saying that these two things don't have to be different from each other. In other words, core process, core purpose of the business, core business, and around the core business can also be one and the same, and you can make money as well as serve the society at the same time. And this particular thing was very beautifully, I would say, codified, described by one of the finest professors from India. And his name was C.K. Prahlad, who unfortunately died young, but he was one of the finest professors of India management from IIT Chennai and other places, and who did a fantastic job where he said that the future money lies in the bottom of the hierarchy. Bottom of the hierarchy. In other words, he said that the companies will make money only if they are able to create innovations into the lowest rung of the income level of people, or those people who are at the lowest rung. So therefore, some of the examples became the poster child of that particular philosophy. And one particular, example was this Shankar Netralaya in South, where they created a mass production of a particular thing without losing necessarily the quality, and then they made it accessible and useful to the people around them. So that is number one example of I would say, which became almost the basis of it. But on the higher end also it can happen, not just in the lower end. For instance, the richest man of the world, he has created a product which is a sustainable product. It is not based on fossil fuel or stuff of that kind. But if you see the kind of things that he's doing, they are all futuristic things, which are not only serving the business vision, but it is also serving the social vision and also the vision of many, many people. So if Musk, who is now the richest man in the world, and if he even sells some of his shares to pay off his tax liability going almost up to $10 billion per person, then that is also a testimony that socio-economic models work. Everywhere they work. And if you are able to do it very, very well, then possibly these particular things will come back. So what I'm trying to provide is some kind of a structure, some kind of a meat to the structure that you have mentioned in the beginning, where you said that most businesses are struggling with that kind of thing. They are struggling because they have seen these two things as add-on activities, core activity and add-on activity. But the companies which are successful are the ones which have integrated the two. So just to give you one example, and then I will, stop. I will come back later for further. And there is a company called Akshay Path. Now, this Akshay Path was a socio-economic innovation in this particular country. It still is, which does a lot of good into the society. I'm giving just Indian examples so that we can, connect or relate to it better. Now, this same company, which was receiving the assistance of donation, this and that, in order to keep going that particular foundation, later on decided that let this particular be done in a business manner. in a manner as if you are running some kind of a company, so where the donations and others become almost subservient to the core mission of any organization, which is to create value and let people come to you attracted by the value rather than some glorified purpose like charity or this and that. So they created a charity into a continuously successful business model, the same way as if you are making steel, as if you are making electronic cars or next stage cars or stuff of that kind. So with all humility and with all perhaps ignorance, which is full there as far as I'm concerned. And in this particular thing, I would like to say that socio-economic businesses work better rather than business innovations or rather than social innovations. For instance, just to give you one example, one particular gentleman had started a call center to be run in India only, a call center in India to be run by the women, for the women, and for the rural women. Fantastic idea. Died and declined very, very soon. Why? Because this particular thing was run more like as if I'm, building a temple, I'm building a social institution, or I'm building some kind of an education. It was more like brownie points, not like a socio-economic business or socio business model. So probably if the organizations can see this not as a charity but as another form of business which is having larger purpose as the core business and the core business as the thing around it, then possibly the things will work better rather than the traditional model where core was the core and society was at the periphery, and that particular periphery was used more for brownie points, for some kind of brand development, for our own glorification, self glorification, maintaining the park or maintaining the road or maintaining the school or providing educational things here or there to various institutes because this is how you want to connect. All good, but they are not socio-economic innovations unless they are run as an economic innovation which is having social interest as the core thing and the other things as periphery, the total antithesis of the old model. So thank you very much, Mr. Goel, for giving me this opportunity to just share some of my initial ignorance. Hopefully later I will dwell upon it when I come back. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agrawal. And I would like to inform our viewers that today's special program is telecast in association with Indo-Gulf Management Association. And now Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agrawal mentioned about one which I also remember, the advertisement which was run by the Tata's Steel on television as well as on print media, where they were showcasing its corporate philanthropy projects without a single mention of the core or the primary business, but signed off with the line, we also make steel. Now, and this at that time, people were very much confused. I still remember we had a long discussion with a few ad pupils, the top ad pupils, and they were saying why they are doing like this. But my view at that time was also the same. I always believe, as Professor Agrawal mentioned, that if you will not think for the society, you will not be a corporate, you can say, runner for a long way. If you want to do a business for a short term, you just think of yourself. But if you want to do a business for a long term, for centuries, then you have to think for the public, for the social responsibility in another way. Then only your business can get that respect and longevity. Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agrawal, for giving your opening remarks. Now, I would like to invite my next panelist guest, and he's Dr. Hemant C. Trivedi. Dr. Trivedi is a PhD. He is the former provost, CU Shah University, Surendranagar. Dr. Trivedi is a senior academician and academic administrator with more than 25 years of teaching, research, consulting and administrative experience. He spent 15 years in manufacturing and marketing of pumps and pumping systems. He is reasonably well traveled through UK, Europe, Middle East, and the Far Eastern region, and of course, across India. Welcome, Dr. Hemant Trivedi on our show. Dr. Trivedi, you have heard what Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agrawal has mentioned. Now, definitely, we would like to know your views on socio-business innovation. Dr. Hemant Trivedi, please. Please unmute. Dr. Trivedi, please unmute.
I did.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Lal, and thank you, the organizers of this event, to have invited me to speak on a very, very interesting topic, and something which has kind of attracted my interest since I came into academics in 94-95. And I have a reason to say this. I'll elaborate on it a little bit as we go ahead. My study in the domain of innovation and my study in the domain of CSR, what I have observed is a lot of research has tried to focus on those companies which are high in CSR, that is, they invest more or spend more, I should say, on the CSR. They also turn out to be high on innovation, and this kind of a positive relationship of CSR spends and innovation has been identified. And as Professor Agrawal just informed us, that yes, innovation is the lifeblood of any organization. Any organization to survive and grow has to be innovative. And therefore, we see the link that, okay, if you are high on a social quotient, when I say that CSR, what I mean is social orientation of a business is very, very relevant and important, right? And this has been empirically tested and established already, that those organizations which are high on CSR, they are also high on innovation, right? At many places, what I have observed is that CSR is kind of misunderstood, as I think was initiated in the introduction to the topic. Some businesses, they try to do certain activities which are actually their business activities, and then they kind of account that off as a CSR activity, which is actually not a CSR activity. It's a business growth activity, but they kind of do it in such a manner and try to establish it as a CSR. This is something which has caught the eyes of the government also, and the ED also is trying to look into it, as to whenever claims are made for a CSR spends, they would want to check whether that actually was a CSR or not. Briefly, I would like to talk about what everybody knows, and that is illustrative examples of CSR. We all know the names of the Tatas and the Birlas and the Premjis and all the top-notch businesses who are into philanthropy and CSR in a very, very big way. What I would like to draw attention of the August audience today is towards other than this big shots. And I have a couple of personal experiences, and I would like to slightly elaborate upon them. One is the Shroff family of Gujarat. Now they are based in Mumbai, but otherwise they have business interests in Gujarat in a very big way. Their leading industry was known as Excel Industry or Excel Group, which has now been converted into Transpec Xerox and such kind of businesses. I know personally, because I happen to be from a place called Bhavnagar, and they had a major plant in Bhavnagar. They used to do two things. One is a very small thing. Whenever we invited their employees for taking classes at my institution, they would not accept the money for the classes. It would definitely be taken as a part of their CSR individually as well as a corporate. And it was built into their evaluation, that is this performance evaluation policy, that if you are invited and you take classes elsewhere, this will be considered as your individual contribution to the CSR. I was amazed, and I'm talking about this in 95, 96, so many years ago. In fact, the coining of the phrases were also in the initial days, right? So that was one thing which we observed, and whenever we insisted on something, they would say, okay, give me the voucher, I'll sign it, and immediately they will issue a check equal to the amount plus whatever they feel like, rounding it off, and they will say that, okay, buy some book for your library. Now, this, I believe, is a micro CSR kind of a activity. And that is where, if we are talking about the innovations at the lowest possible level, if you want to contribute to the lowest level possible, I think it is this kind of innovations that are going to be useful. But a very, very important thing that the Shroffs did was, as a policy, they said that anything new that my people do, that is any innovation that is created by their employees, and if it is patented, the patent will remain an open patent for anybody to follow that technology. Now, that I think was a very, very unique phenomenon. I have not come across other examples of this kind of open patenting. They will take a patent and then keep the patent open for anybody to immediately make use of, right? Now, this actually has helped some of the rural populations in Gujarat and other places because of this kind of thing. One small example was, for the first time, they identified how to use a buffalo to generate electricity. In the oil mills, erstwhile old type of oil mills, we used to have a bullock who used to keep on mowing around and around, and instead of a bullock, let us identify a new way of trying to give motion, right? And there they experimented with windmill, and how oil mill could be, the churning of the oil mill could be done through the use of windmill. And this they opened to anybody and everybody, right? Similarly, a couple of other innovations also they had kept open, which I am aware of, right? So I think these are the kind of innovations that we should also try and take note of, right? Another thing I would like to make mention is that the major domains of CSR have always remained around health, for example, or education, right? Women empowerment is also being looked at in a very big way by a lot of organizations, right? One other very important, of course, it's very, very relevant and important, environment. CSR on environmental protection, environmental development, and so on and so forth, protection and all. And one more thing which I liked when I started searching for illustrative examples was vocational training. The likes of Mahindras have been spending sizable amount of money on vocational training so that immediate employment could be generated for the underprivileged kind of kids and so on and so forth. And this is supported by something called sustainable livelihood. Projects on sustainable livelihood are also being taken up by corporates as a part of their CSR activities. I think this is a very, very relevant and important form of innovativeness in terms of CSR, which corporates or organizations can possibly go for. Research has also identified that it is not just a question of adopting CSR. There are so many organizations, they just do it because it is government has said that you have to do it, and to be able to justify that they are also a socially oriented organization and so on and so forth, they try to do the CSR as a one-off kind of expenditure every year. That has not helped. What has actually helped is that you take up a cause, you take up a particular domain and focus on it for years upon years. If you have a long-term orientation towards CSR, then and only then it results into genuinely good community development or social development and so on and so forth. And in this context, I have been able to see some research work where it says that those organizations who are, there are a few only, but those organizations who are including the CSR as a part of their sustainable developmental goals, SDGs as we call them, those people who are incorporating their CSR as a part of their SDG strategy, if the CSR is built into the strategy, those are the organizations which have been able to influence the communities in which they operate in the most positive and most elaborate manner. Now, I think this is a very, very important aspect of understanding in terms of social development and so on and so forth, right? And then one thing which I have tried to tell you just a while ago was MSMEs and innovations, small enterprises. Very small enterprises also can do a lot of innovations. I have a personal experience here again from my hometown. There is a company called Microsign, and they, from the day of inception, have always been employing disabled people for performing various tasks or operations of their business, manufacturing business. Now, training those people who are physically disabled, or whichever way you would like to look at it, various kinds of disabled, they are training into doing small tasks which contribute to the total production of their products. Now, this, I believe, is also a very, very intelligent way of doing a CSR, which is built into your business. But actually, you see that otherwise, these people would not have found any kind of gainful employment. And here is a gentleman who is making special efforts to get those people into the mainstream by giving special training and including them as a part of their business activity. Right now, a while ago, I said that there are people who are considering activities which they consider as CSR, which are actually for their business growth. This is different. The example I gave that of Microsign is that, yes, they are employing these people, giving them special training as a part of a social responsibility that they believe that they owe to the community in which they are operating. Right. So I think this is a very, very innovative way of looking at how you can go about CSR and contribute to the communities in which you operate. I told in the beginning that as early as 94, 95, I got initiated into the concept of social entrepreneurship and so on and so forth. This is because Gujarat, as most of you people may know, is very high on social entrepreneurship, some of the finest examples of social entrepreneurship. And to that extent, I would consider Amul also as a social entrepreneurship project started before almost 60 years, right? When it started off, nobody knew what's going to happen. But the persistence and consistency with which it was followed up, right? I think that has actually created one of the biggest, one of the largest movement in the world in terms of cooperatives, right? So that began as a cooperative movement, but it has been one of the largest possible conceptualization of social entrepreneurship, right? My friend and my colleague at that time, Professor T.K. Jain, he took up, and he was amongst the very first few to take it up as his PhD topic, social entrepreneurship. And subsequently, he has done a reasonable amount of research work in the domain and has been able to establish that, yes, social entrepreneurship is also a very, very important and relevant aspect. And so many social entrepreneurs, in order to fund their activities, have been supported by corporates as a part of their CSR. And I think this kind of coming together of organizations is going to contribute in a very big way to the society at large, right? And yes, I would like to say that big business houses like the Future Group, they also try to create a business model catering to the lowest classes, as Professor Agarwal told us about Professor Prahlad's concept of bottom of the pyramid, right? The lowest possible social hierarchy, if you are able to cater to them. And similar to their Big Bazaar, they came up with a very small format of Kirana stores, and they tried to put it across various states in India. Unfortunately, for various reasons, they could not sustain it for a long time. And let me tell you that it was not a business model error. It was more of a logistics challenge rather than a business model error. Otherwise, it was a very nicely thought out business model trying to cater to the lowest possible classes. And see, we have this railways and the state transport corporations and even the banks, our national banks, who are running certain businesses at a loss. It is understood. Say, for example, the state transport corporation will be made to run certain routes where the number of passengers are going to be very low. But they have to do it because it's a social service, so far as the state is concerned. On a similar line, we are able to see some of the private businesses also orienting their business activities in such a manner that they are contributing to the local community and the surrounding diaspora in order to develop their livelihood, develop their ability to enter into gainful employment. I think these are some of the very important and relevant domains of social CSR as I see it. And with this, I humbly submit my statements that yes, social CSR is a very, very important phenomenon for countries like India. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Trivedi, for giving your views. And Dr. Trivedi has mentioned about micro CSR. He says that CSR generally is for the big corporates, which are being seen and admired by everybody. But there are many corporate companies, small companies, those who are doing on a micro basis. He has given the examples also. He has also mentioned how one of the companies giving that, asking their employees to do some innovation, and if they will be getting some new thing, get it patented, but it is open for everyone. So according to him, this is all is required. And if your CSR is built in with the sustainable development goal, then it will give more advantage, because what we are seeing, and it is fact also, because we have done a program earlier, I think Professor Agrawal will remember, we have done a program on CSR in which the views are that many times the corporates are taking advantage of the CSR because they are getting the tax exemptions, and there is a limit that they have to give that much amount out of their profit. So, but they are not doing a social responsibility which is required. That thing, if you are paying money to someone and if you are doing something which can improvise their lifestyle or their societal, then definitely it is a lots of difference. So according to Dr. Trivedi, those corporates who are doing CSR built in with the sustainable development goal is really, and they are long lasting. And he has also mentioned about the Amul, how they have started in a cooperative movement, and with such a small way they have started, and now it has become a worldwide thing which people appreciate and admire. And he has also mentioned that about many times the transportations, railways or the buses or whatnot, they have to ply on so many routes which are loss-making routes, but it is required because of the social obligation. He also mentioned Mr. Biani's future group. I was very much associated with Mr. Kishore Biani from the very beginning, when he was having a very small shop in the South Mumbai. But how he has become so big. Yes, it is unfortunate that his corporate thing could not sustain because of, as one of the reasons which Dr. Trivedi highlighted about the logistic thing. And but nowadays in a legal fight which is going on between the Ambanis as well as the Amazon. Let's hope that something good will come. Thank you very much, Dr. Trivedi, for enlightening all of us how the socio-business innovation is required. Not only the CSR, you have to come out some innovation thing. Thank you very much. Now I would like to invite my next panelist guest, and he is Mr. Thanu Nathan. Mr. Nathan is the Director of Middle East Consulting Group, MCG, Dubai, UAE. He did mechanical engineering from Madurai Kamraj University. He is involved in various oil and gas installation, pipelines, underwater for oil and gas transportation, cross-country pipelines, refinery, petrochemical construction, global oil and gas machinery procurements, inspection and testing. In 2008, he founded Middle East Consulting Group in India, and in 2010, he started office in UAE. He is dealing with 40 plus countries globally. He is a self-made businessman who learned business management by doing business. He has vast experience in doing business in India, UAE, Europe, and USA. Welcome, Mr. Thanu Nathan, on our show. Mr. Nathan, you have heard Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agrawal as well as Dr. Hemant Trivedi. They have given their views about the socio-business innovation. Now, definitely, we would like to hear from you, your views on socio-business innovation. Mr. Thanu Nathan, please.
Yeah, good morning, Mr. Lal Goel. Thank you very much for giving this opportunity. And, greetings to my co-panelist, Dr. Mohanlal Agrawal, Dr. Hemant Trivedi, Mr. Madhukar Anand, and hello to all the viewers from Karo News and B4 News. Yeah. So thank you for giving me this opportunity and giving the topic of social business innovation. So I look at this as a product or service which addresses the social needs and the requirement and the environmental needs of the society. And we look at the world, the globe is having a lot of issues which are in need of water, climate change, human rights, health issues, poverty, energy needs, education for various sectors, and the oil and gas requirement for sustainability. So we are looking at the leaders who can solve all these issues in the current scenario. So we look at these social business innovators who think differently, who has new ideas, who will have new innovations, which will help the social needs of the society and which meets the environmental requirements of the globe. So to solve this, the requirements and the issues of the globe requirement, there are like a non-profit organization, or sometimes there are profit organization which are formed, which brings social innovative reforms and the government reforms. These all together, put together, we can, meet the challenges of the globe. There are a lot of companies which are, operating on a profit basis, but still they have some kind of section. They address the social reforms. Like, let's say I was working in a company called Double Power Company back in Maharashtra, maybe like 27 years ago. They were making a power plant, American company in India. The Bechtel was a construction company. They were making power plant in India. So the agenda was to build a power plant and sell it to the local Maharashtrian government. But still they brought a lot of social reforms. It means they procured a lot of land from the local villages. So there was a team of people, including the PRO and there is a full team of people. They were day to day dealing with the villages. They were trying to train the villages. They were trying to give the opportunity to work in the project. They were also giving opportunity and train them on the project. They give a lot of educative requirements to the villagers, and they got them on board. From the security till the engineering, mechanical people, they all were working on the power plant during the construction phase. Same for Tata Power or for Reliance or for like refineries like Mangalore Refinery or petrochemical projects, or even Tata Motors building a plant in different states, or many of the foreign companies coming into India. The agenda is to have businesses and to have profit to the shareholders, but still they have a little bit have the social innovative idea to serve the social, environmental, and the social society requirements. There are other non-profit organizations. They serve the social needs of the people. They try to give opportunity for the people by giving them education, by giving them like microfinancing, like some kind of loans, to have some kind of startup. Even we can look at the small scale industries or small business owners, they get some kind of support from the government or from the local trust, to give the opportunity to have some kind of startup. Focusing on the business, social business innovation ideas, we have a lot of areas we could look at, like wind energy, solar energy, like people using, in the villages, people using cow dung to make some kind of gas for the consumption of the cooking. The use of storage of rainwater, rainwater harvesting, recycling of waste. When I travel across the world, I see a lot of used cars being scrapped. So there is a lot of innovative business ideas for the social cause, and the young generation who are really coming up could come up with different kind of ideas, to innovate the social cause, and to become a business entrepreneur as well. So there, even protection of a forest, protection of trees, protection of nature, protection of animals, as other colleagues were saying about the call centers and giving opportunity for the local people, banking support, startup of small scale industries. These all could have impact on the society. Yeah. So for the younger generation, they could always look at have a social business innovation. We have a lot of universities across the world. They specify and they especially have courses on social business innovation. If you look at in US, there are more than 25 universities, giving, social innovative ideas and business degrees, as well as if you look at in India, like, Zindal Center of social innovative business ideas. And, there is a certification program by Zindal in Sonipat in Haryana. And there are other universities offering the similar course. So this is a challenging area where, the younger generation need to look at, and they should, get some kind of educative requirement, and they should be able to fulfill their social, and the environmental requirement and the costs to solve the issue of the upcoming global problems. So with that, I would end up my statement, and I look forward to have a dialogue with you. Yes,
thank you very much, Mr. Nathan, for giving your views. And Mr. Nathan started his talk by giving the example of Goel power plant. And he mentioned how they were doing initially the social innovation work by purchasing the land and giving those the local people many things for their benefit. But as we all know that one government was changed because of that power plant, and the other government took advantage of the Shiv Sena BJP in 1995. Their campaign was to throw away that Enron plant in the Arabian Sea. So, but according to him, until unless the people, the corporates will not do the social innovation, then it is not going to work for the benefits. Mishappenings happens like in the double plant, but that is an exceptional case. But otherwise, you require to do many works with a innovation work, so that a small innovation which can give advantage to the business. Thank you very much, Mr. Nathan, for giving your views. Now I would like to invite my next panelist, and he is Mr. Madhukar Anand. Mr. Madhukar Anand is the former executive director of Netra NTPC, New Delhi. He did MBA from FMS University of Delhi and completed Senior Leadership Development Program from Harvard Business School. Presently, he is member of FICCI's National Committee on Science and Technology Innovation. He is a distinguished power sector professional, having pioneered supercritical energy efficient power plants. He is instrumental in development of new and innovative technologies, mainly in the areas of efficiency and reliability improvement, new and renewable energy, climate change and environmental protection, which includes water conservation, ash utilization, and waste management. Welcome, Mr. Madhukar Anand on our show. Mr. Madhukar Anand, you are already a member of FICCIS, which is basically for science and technology and innovation. And you also did lots of work for the renewable energy, climate change, environmental protection, etc. So basically the innovation and the socio business both are already incorporated in your working, which you have done in many years. Definitely. And you have already heard our earlier speakers, Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agrawal, Dr. Trivedi, and Mr. Nathan. Now we would like to know your views on social business and innovation. Mr. Madhukar Anand, please.
A very good morning to all of you. And thank you, Mr. Lal Goel, and my co-panelist and distinguished panelist, Dr. Mohan Agarwal, Dr. Hemant Trivedi, Mr. Thanu Nathan. And of course, you all have been primarily from academic field, so you are very well in articulating and theoretizing all that is there in the field. But my experience is basically related to working on the field. And it's basically related to power sector and what learnings I have accumulated, I would like to share with you. Like in power sector, if we see that initially the business understanding was that you generate power, you generate profits. We were not concerned about pollution as such. And pollution was left to be handled by other people. Which now there's a paradigm shift over the years, what I've seen, that there has been a paradigm shift in terms of climate change, in terms of environmental factors. It has been very well established that unless you attack the polluting aspects of your industry, unless you mitigate environmental impacts, your business is not going to be sustainable. So the socio-business model that is going to be there has to be sustainable. But from my experience, what I've seen, that a lot of innovations we have done in our power sector. Like I would tell you that we developed utilizing waste flue gas heat recovery, because that goes waste into that environment, creates a lot of heating effects. So how to utilize that waste heat? So we created a system where we can use that flue gas desulfurization, flue gas, basically desalination system, that seawater we were taking, and we can desalinate. So if you're aware that all these multiple brands like Kinley, Bisleri, they sell mineral waters at around, say, 12 rupees, 15 rupees a bottle. And we were able to demonstrate that with our technology, we are able to do it at around 12 paisa a liter. And similarly, we did for some of projects where this waste heat is not available, we can do it with solar water desalination also. And there also the cost was coming to around 18 paisa per liter. So these are very good economic, the efficacy has been demonstrated, the business case has been demonstrated, but still it is not taking off. So if I go a bit deeper into these things, so the reason why I feel that the problem is of scalability. Now, since this is not the main core business of the power generating organization, so it is basically a sideline sort of thing. Now, why other entrepreneurs are not coming into this field? There is a scalability problem. Now, why there is a scalability problem? There is a resource crunch. Now, who will give these resources? Either we go to government to seek budget for everything, or we provide from our budget. Or the third important thing is that why don't we create something which is a sustainable model in itself? If we can create a profitable model that, yes, this we are going to meet a need of society, and this will generate certain amount of profit, and that is going to sustain this business model. And this we have experimented, and I'm happy to inform you that we have entered into an agreement with IRCTC. So for our Simhadri plant, where we have done this flue gas based desalination system, so they have taken it as a commercial venture, and we have entered into an MOU with them, and now they are taking all that water from us, and they are utilizing it. And similarly, you might have heard about this Sagarmala project, all the coastal region Sagarmala project. It's a very, very, very ambitious project. If we can provide certain things, so a lot of business potential are there. Now, I was telling that how do we meet our this business needs? If we have to do all these things, how do we meet our business needs? So the only thing is that we will have to tap everything government cannot do, everything NGOs cannot do. And that has been the conventional way they have been working. And they've been doing good job. Like Professor Hemant Trivedi said that CSR he mentioned. Of course, CSR is, of course, a mandatory thing that people are doing. But whether you have compassion in your hearts, what are you doing? In our power plants, when we went to visit our power plants, they were beautifully illuminated all around. But if you go outside, you have regions of immense darkness all over. Is that the developmental model that we're working for? So NTPC took a conscious decision, no, that whatever be there, if we are going to be lighted, we have to see that our all surroundings, the nearby towns, etc., we created an infrastructure that they also get uninterrupted power supply. They are also lighted well. So these type of things are going to be there. Now, I'll just take example of some other technologies that we have said that all our power plants are emitting, like you might be aware that SOx emissions, NOx emissions, and all these things were going, and they were supposed to create havoc. But proactively, now, if you have built it into a business model, like if you do FGD technologies, if you do NOx control, combustion modification, you do catalytic reductions, and you reduce all these things. So they have turned out into successful business models, and you'll be happy to know that we are at par now. We are going to be at par with the world's best utilities, where we have been able to do that. So in my opinion, that whatever business model we say, whatever innovation we do, it definitely has got a social impact. It has a social impact. Only thing it's reachability, scalability has to be there. And to make it scalable, you need resources. And for resources, you should not depend upon government. You should not depend upon NGOs. You should create a sustainable business model. Business model should be that there should be some profit, because profit is the magic word which will sustain this business model. So that is very essential. And if there's a partnership between NGO, government, and the entrepreneur, that is going to be the thing. And hopefully those things are taking place right now. So in my opinion, I would have developed a number of technologies. If time permits, we will discuss it further. So these are my opening remarks. And I definitely like to again brainstorm on these issues again.
Thank you very much, Mr. Madhukar Anand, for giving your views. And Mr. Madhukar Anand, he says that he has worked in this field, and especially in the power sector, and he has seen how the things are not moving, because CSR is not the thing which is giving, it is just a mandatory thing. But when you are doing something from your heart, that matters. And he has given example of NTPC, when NTP is totally lighted, our power plant and their township, but outside there is totally dark. So he says that we have decided to lighten them also. Now, this is what he says, that the social innovation which is required for a business people, although there is a resource crunch for everyone, but he says let there be a partnership between NGO, the entrepreneurs, and the government, and all these things can work in a very, very big way, which he says nowadays it is coming up. So thank you very much, Mr. Madhukar Anand, for giving your views. Now, my first question goes to Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agrawal. Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agrawal, how are global socio-business innovations are different from local ones? Because we have seen there are, now it's a multinational companies everywhere. So what is the difference between global and the local?
Thank you, Mr. Goel, and thank you all my esteemed colleagues here who have brought in the very, very important aspects of socio-economic innovation. And I think, the point was very well made by Mr. Anand, Mr. Madhukar, when he said that speed and scalability, These two things have become the essence of any successful social enterprise. Let me give you some examples of them, global, so that we can understand them. Number one is this Melinda and Melinda Gates Foundation itself. That when it became right from the beginning an organizational idea for the world, not for the US itself. So these organizations, if they really want to be successful, they have to be what is known as born global. They shouldn't become global at a later stage. They should be born global. In other words, right from the beginning, they should have an ambition that their idea is not for them only, but for everyone else. A very good example of this success is PETA, the prevention of animal cruelty, where they enlisted the celebrities of almost all countries. And right from the beginning, it was a born global organization from that point of view. So the first point is that you should have world as your market and not the country where you are. This is the problem that most of the social organizations which start well, mean well, but do not go further. Why? Because they are seeing their sphere as limited and probably subservient to the core purpose that they are working for. And I give, perhaps to that extent, blame even to the Indian corporate organizations that not a single social entrepreneurship has come from India, which is a globally accepted, globally respected, globally adopted. I'm sorry to say this with all humility, but at the same time, a lot of disappointment in my mind. But on the other hand, we have number of organizations of this kind who we are adopting here. So why? Obviously, there is the second gap, and that second gap is that we are seeing it more like an add-on business, side business, rather than the main business. Socio-economic, socio-business innovations require the same time commitment, same skill commitment, same strategic commitment as any other business would need. They require the same type of marketing resources also. I mean, our guru of marketing, Philip Kotler, has become much more powerful than he was anyway because of his book on non-profit marketing or non-profit business marketing. So he spoke the same way that he was talking about branding a commercial organization or a commercial product or a commercial. Somehow, this particular thing hasn't sunk in us that marketing is not a bad thing. Bad marketing is bad. Marketing is not bad. But somewhere we have this thing that I have a great idea. Why should I market? Why should I? And people will ridicule me or laugh at me if I market that particular thing. So this is the second point which I would like to make that will make the organizations a lot more successful. And the third and which is where I will stop because I would like all others also to contribute. Their mission and vision statement is not very exciting and clear. It is more what we call Swanta Sukhaya. Swanta Sukhaya means this is making yourself happy, but not anyone else. A social innovation must excite everyone who's there, not just you, and not just that you should feel great because you have created. So number one, born global. Number two, there should be a very clear purpose behind it and mission behind it the same way as if you're running the business. And the third one is this. That is to say that somewhere, you are really taking it as a challenge, like a business challenge. So these are the things I would like to say, sir.
Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agarwal. Although you have given the reference of Gates Foundation, which is in lots of controversies facing in India due to their vaccination things, etc., etc. But anyway, they are doing lots of good work, so we have to appreciate that. Now, my question goes to Dr. Hemant Trivedi. Dr. Hemant Trivedi, you have mentioned about CSR, and you have also mentioned about the innovation. My question to you is, do you think mandatory CSR, which is in India, killed innovation? Because what happens that many of the corporates, they feel that we have already fulfilled our obligation to the social responsibility. Why we will go and go ahead for doing something, as our earlier panelist has mentioned, Mr. Nathan as well as Mr. Madhukar, that compassion is missing because they are doing it. So my question is compulsory or the mandatory CSR is killing the innovation? Please unmute. Please unmute.
Okay. It's a very interesting phenomenon that we are discussing here, compulsion. Allow me to take a kind of example from a very different field, and then I will come back to why I think it is working, it's going to work good. I know an agriculturist who would pick up barren lands, and then he will say that, okay, I'll create this land, the barren land, into fertile land. And then he would go for planting certain kinds of trees, looking at the soil characteristics, and then providing artificial manure, scientific manure there, and all the latest technologies he would use and create the initial kind of semi-forest of teak wood or whichever way he would like to plant, right? And within 5 years, those plants will grow up, and then he will say that, okay, I will stop any kind of scientific involvement here, and all the leaves which fall from the trees, they themselves are allowed to rot there, and then they become the manure for further growth and development. And this is how that entire barren piece of land becomes agriculture becomes possible in that land, piece of land. And this experiment he has conducted at several places in Gujarat, and I'm personally aware of that. Now, why I am saying this? Compulsory CSR should work something like that. Artificial and scientific manure and chemicals and other things which are otherwise understood to be not very healthy are used to initiate the early growth of agriculture or vegetation. And that vegetation is then allowed to kind of settle there and become the natural kind of nutrients for further growth of the plants. In the same way, in the CSR context also, there were people, or there have been people like Tatas and others, which I already mentioned, Shroffs of Gujarat and all, who were already doing all these kinds of things, even without the compulsion. But the larger corporate body was not involved into it. And that is where the government, I think, thought of making it compulsory. And now that it is compulsory, over a period of time, people are learning how to make a better use of those resources. करना तो है ही है, तो फिर क्यों ना थोड़ा अच्छे से करें. That is the kind of thinking which is going to be built into the minds of the corporate. And I believe over the next 10 years, we will see that those people who are not really very oriented towards CSR will already also become more oriented towards CSR because of the compulsion initially, but then they will fall into the habit of doing something good. And I have known of corporates even in the early 90s who appointed people at the level of vice presidents for CSR, right? I am personally aware of Bajaj who did it, right? And they had a vice president level position for CSR only. So this is where I think those people who are not originally oriented into CSR, they are getting gradually oriented into CSR, and it will become a natural phenomenon as we go ahead. And therefore, I believe that yes, current compulsion or compulsory CSR, I personally look it at in a very positive way. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Trivedi. Although we know that before CSR, all the top institutions, whether for health or education, were developed by Tatas and Birlas at that time without any compulsion for CSR.
Exactly.
They are still the benchmark, or you can say the landmark of the country.
By
Thank
all
you very much.
means.
Now I would like to go to Mr. Nathan. Mr. Nathan, my question to you is, what metrics reflects the true value of a socio-business innovation?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Goel. I would say that, as I was explaining before, the similar thing, like a company, they should, even though they have a profit-oriented agenda, they also should have a socio-oriented agenda of each and every company and corporates. The other one is the matrix should come from basically how we support the environment and how we support the social need and the social cause. So, for example, there are corporates going from one state to other state, how they are able to support to the local needs, how they are able to empower the locals, and how they are able to support to their local social needs. I didn't get exactly what you are talking about the matrix. Can you a little bit clarify me? Like I can come specific to the point.
I think Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agarwal can enlighten about this. Professor Agarwal, have you heard the question? Please unmute yourself. Please unmute.
See, the metrics here would be, Ms. Thanu, that he's talking about either two-dimensional or three-dimensional, right? So like this two-dimensional, three-dimensional metrics would be that on that he will take 3 or 4 variables and then see whether this particular social business initiative is going better or the same way or declining. Some kind of a framework, diagnostic framework. That is what.
Okay, I got it. Now, whether the objective is met or not, right? So that is like he was rightly saying about the Melinda Gates Foundation, or the polio eradication program, or the malaria eradication program. So each month or each year, now you see the COVID vaccination program. We can see the objective of the cause of the government plan to complete these missions. So end of the month or end of every quarter, they measure the objective and make sure that the objectives are met. The same way, the small scale business innovators who makes the business for the social cause, they make sure the economy is running. Like you make a startup in a village or in a province where you are able to make a business to improve the social cause with a very marginal profit margin. If you are able to meet the objective, that can be measured by the fixed objective plan of any small scale industry or a company. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Nathan. So basically, the reflection is there in the how it will go, that we have to see, and that is the social business innovation. Now my question goes to Mr. Madhukar Anand. Mr. Madhukar Anand, what is the impact of philanthropically minded entrepreneur in the institutionalization of social innovation?
A good question. Actually, unless you have philanthropy as your core value, I don't think any innovation, if you have to scale it up, it is not going to be sustainable because of some regulations or something. It might work for some time, but it's not going to have a long-lasting impact. It's not going to create a legacy. For example, if you see right now, this COP summit was there, Glasgow summit, and there was a lot of pressure on India to reduce carbon emissions. And we are committed. We have made a lot of commitments over there. Now, what is our role in that? Like, if you see that power plants, they are supposed to be using fossil fuels, and they create a lot of carbon dioxide. Now, how to mitigate that? Because for energy security, our country, we need it. So the philanthropic approaches that each and everybody in our country should have energy security. Now, energy security with a purpose. Now, what we have done is that this carbon dioxide can be captured from the flue gases. Now, capturing in itself is not a very big thing unless you utilize it. So, a lot of innovation work has been done. We have developed mechanisms to generate hydrogen in a green way. We have developed reactors, and this carbon dioxide can be captured to develop methanol in reactors. So this methanol will be serving the transport sector. This will be serving the transport sector, fertilizer sector. So a lot of places that is there. So this carbon capture, its development into methanol. Similarly, like the one of the most used ash product that we have in power plants is ash. It was a national problem up till some time back. So the philanthropic orientation was that why don't we develop certain entrepreneurs who can utilize this ash and build them into bricks, into gypsum, into fertilizers, because that improves the soil's productivity also. So all these experiments, and you'll be happy to know they have been scaled up, and now ash is no more considered as a waste. It is considered as a resource. Similarly, the wastewater that was going, wastewater, because these are the real challenges that our country is facing, water crisis. So the city waste, which was not a part of our core business, but we as a social entity took up that challenge, that we will take up that whatever city waste are coming. So we have entered into a number of agreements with number of municipal bodies. We are taking their wastewater, and by a process of forward osmosis, we are trying to make it into a basically drinkable water, potable water. So these are certain philanthropic orientations one need to have in order to make it sustainable. So these are...
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Madhukar Anand, for giving your views. Yes, if we are philanthropic from the heart, then only the innovations can come. If otherwise, and a long-lasting, sustainable innovation. Otherwise, we will be doing something for the short time gains. That is not going to be a long-lasting. And I think Professor Mohan Agrawal would like to add something.
Yeah, sir, I agree with you that without philanthropy at heart, it will be difficult for the businessmen to move into these initiatives, without doubt. But I think, different skills are needed for different stages of that particular product or socio-economic innovation as a product. So therefore, in the beginning, no doubt that this philanthropy, empathy, and larger, qualities of life are driving the people towards creating those socio-business innovations. Thereafter, they will start slowing down or declining. Like I giving you other examples of call centers and others. If they do not have the next level competencies, which are those next level competencies? Managerial ability. You have to have implementation ability. You have to have a business like approach for this particular thing. Otherwise, it will have a problem. Now, without doubt, I am requesting, that when you become global or when you go beyond your own shores to other countries, some controversies will follow. And
Yes.
those controversies are actually the essence of that particular thing. In other words, you are doing something good, then only the controversy arises. But if it is ineffective, nobody will pay even attention to your good deeds or bad deeds because you just don't matter for them. So Melinda Gates and other things which you very correctly referred to has exactly the same condition which I'm saying, that they are doing a lot of good job, but things
Yes.
happen from that point of view.
Thank you, Professor Agrawal. And what I would like to add one thing, like about the philanthropist from the heart. We have seen two examples recently. One was of Tata's, how the Tata's culture was to, as already mentioned by Professor Agrawal. But when Mr. Mistry joined, the main contention or their dispute was because he want to inculcate some other culture which the Tatas are not agreeing for. Similarly, we have seen in Infosys, the same thing has happened when Mr. Sikka joined, because the culture which the promoters or those who are running the show with their own philanthropic ideas, which are compromised with a professional one. That if that Mr. Sikka or Mr. Mistry wanted to do something very professional, but you have to see the group's ideology, especially the philanthropy thing. Thank you very much. Now, in the last round, I would like to have an advice and suggestion from you all for those who are going to, because our program is watched by lots of youth. So what advice would like to give, starting from Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agrawal, one minute each, not more than that, to the youth about this socio-business innovation?
Very good. I think this is one of the best part of our show in this particular aspect. I totally, see the point that you are making. So to the youth, I have two things for them. Number one, let them also see this as a viable business opportunity, the socio business innovation. It is not just being good, but it is also being good in business thinking. So that is number one point I would like to make. Number two, I would say that there should be two funds that should be set up immediately. Number one is socio business venture fund. The same way like we have got entrepreneurial funds or business funds, and there should be one for this also. And there are many people who are willing to put in money for such kind of product. And number three, or rather last point, that there should also be a pool of expertise available, made and available. Maybe our friend Mr. Hemant Trivedi can take a lead into this thing, because he is at heart of not only these matters, but he's also coming from a part of the country which does these things. I mean, Amul is a wonderful example, as you very, very correctly mentioned. So in my opinion, if that thing is done, youth will be happy. Sorry, sir. I took a
Okay,
little
thank you very much. Dr. Hemant Trivedi, please. Please unmute. Please unmute.
Yeah, I tend to forget unmuting. Thank you, Dr. Agrawal, for bringing in the right perspective in context of my home state of Gujarat. And yes, it is very, very essential that we develop some of the initiatives which have been just identified by you. When talking to the youth, I have two very specific things to talk about. Contra to the business idea where people say think big, I would say for individual youth, think small. Think of the smallest way in which you can make a difference to people around you. Start from there, and gradually it will evolve into a statewide or a nationwide kind of movement. We have several examples of this kind of things having started off in a very, very small way, a trickle of social entrepreneurship, and then it has grown to very big kind of organization. So think small, the smallest possible way in which you can possibly contribute to the community around you. That is one thing. And in order to think what, just simply go by the very, very old adage, do unto others what you would want others to do unto you. Look at some discomfort which you yourself are facing and see how it can be taken care of. A large number of people could be facing the same challenges, the same problems. Start working on that. And I'm sure you have a very short socio-entrepreneurship.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Trivedi. Mr. Thanu Nathan, please. Please unmute.
Yeah, Mr. Lal, thank you. Thanks a lot. My message to the youngsters is like a doctor who could look at giving a good service to the local community at a cost of $1 per visit. They could really support the community, for the local villages or the town where they are serving. Like a message to engineers, they could build up a low-cost housing to solve the issues of the, provide them with, better living conditions. They could invest in a very simple land and develop housing.
Okay.
And then for economists, who are wealthier, who could really give microfinancing to the local community, who can, start up small-scale businesses from making food to iron company or whatever it is. And the educator, I want to take an example of Sridhar Vempu, who is a $2.5 billion, billionaire who came back to India. He is giving education to a lot of.
Yes, Mr. Nathan. Thank you. Sorry, paucity of time. Thank you very much. Now, my last, Mr. Madhukar Anand.
Yeah, my, of course, message to youth is, please go ahead. The country awaits you, and turn social problems into a scalable business opportunities. And in our generation, it was that social value and economic value were inversely related to each other. Now, they has to be positively correlated. So create a shared value between a social value and economic value, and you will be successful. That is my...
Thank you very much. Thank you. So viewers, you have seen today that if you are an entrepreneur, if you are a businessman, you need not to be very big for the CSR. CSR is for the big corporates, they are doing, but they are also doing other innovations. But if you are a small businessman also, you can also do the innovation. You can do many changes in the society. You can impact, as our panelist has said, that it has to be a philanthropist heart. If you have that heart, you can do. And this way, your business can grow like anything, as all our panelists has mentioned, how the impact of the social business innovation can create even for your business, even for your peace of mind, and for the society and for our country. Thank you very much. And today's program has been live telecasted by V4 News, V4 Stream, Malnadu TV India, News Gaon se, Samvad Sarokar News, Bharat Post News, Karu News, as well as it was shown live on Facebook and YouTube. And in our endeavor to bring to you every day new topic and media conference with Lal Goel at 10:30 a.m. And tomorrow our topic is very, very controversial. The topic is Bully by Indian Women for Sale. And our panelists are Advocate Shashank Das Sudhi, Supreme Court, New Delhi, Mr. Arun Lakshman, Director, Center for Policy and Development Studies, former officer on special duty, Minister of State for Law and Justice. He's joining from Trivandrum. Advocate Kanishka Tyagi, Head, Business Strategies, Lengam Amicus, New Delhi, and Advocate Avishi Dhaka, Supreme Court, New Delhi. So please tune in tomorrow for the media conference with Lal Goel at 10:30 a.m. Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agrawal. Thank you very much, Dr. Hemant Trivedi. Thank you very much, Mr. Thanu Nathan, and thank you very much, Mr. Madhukar Anand, for joining and enlightening all of us about social business innovation. And thank you all the viewers for watching our show. I'm sure our